And thanks for joining us now for this half hour of our debate with the runoff candidates for Columbia Mayor. I'm being joined by the managing editor from the Post and Courier in Columbia, that's Andy Shane, along with Councilman Daniel Rickenmann and Councilwoman Tameika Issac Devine. We're going to get back to the questions now. Andy, you've got the next question.
All right. Councilman Rickenmann, let's go ahead and start with you on this question. You have discussed lowering taxes and reducing fees. That's been a hallmark of your campaign. If that happens, if you're able to convince the council to do that, that will certainly make a dent in the city budget. So if that happens, what has to go? What has to be taken out of the budget to make that happen?
Well, first of all, reducing taxes doesn't have to affect our budget. Money is not an issue right now. And in the times we are between recovery money and infrastructure money coming down, if we're smart and leverage it, it gives us an opportunity to build a financial bridge. If you read the tax study that we did, and it gave us multiple avenues on how to address this. We have to be competitive today, and we're not. Greenville is 38% lower than we are, and Charleston's 48% lower than we are in property tax. But this isn't just a city issue. This is a county and a school district. We have to come together. We have 3 economists who are working with us, and they have both all said we have to attack this issue, and that there's a way to do it. It could be Act 90, where we reduce our rate just in Richland County by 1 point, so we're at 5. That's a 25% reduction. Maybe it's we cap the rate out in 2 years, and all the money that comes over that set rate for the next 2 years goes into a fund that creates the financial bridge, so that if the school district or the county or anybody needs that money, we can dole it out at that time. There's so many different ways uniquely that we can address it, but we have to address it. So now it's time to roll up our sleeves, sit down with our partners, and talk about, because economic development is so important, and taxes are one piece of it.
But just to be clear, there's nothing that would have to be cut if we cut taxes. I mean,
no, sir.
No. Okay. Councilwoman Devine, let me ask you: can Columbia afford to cut taxes and fees to maintain the programs, the services that its residents are getting right now?
You know, I think that we have to be able to address our tax structure, and I think that as we grow, we don't have to cut programs or anything. We can actually add. I think it's about the leadership that you have and how you are strategically looking at things. But we also need to make sure that we are investing in the city, and I've said it many times, equitably. It is good to say you're going to bring people together, but when we first got our tax study, the first person who actually shared with the county and the school districts the study was me. There was no person on city council who actually went to our partners and said, hey, this is what the study tells us. What do you think? What is your response? And how do we move forward talking about this in a way? When we talked about the 3 economists who are now at the table helping us look at this, that was my idea. I said, let's bring in other economists so that we can have the best minds helping us figure this out. And so as your next mayor, we need a leader who's going to be able to not only identify a problem, but come up with a real solution. And when we come up with that solution, yes, we will have money to invest in growing our city and making sure that we have the ample resources, not just to invest in everything, but to keep going.
But again, to be clear, Councilwoman Devine, does that mean that that you don't think we should be cutting taxes, we shouldn't be cutting fees, so that we can pay for these additional programs you're talking about?
No, I think we need to address our taxing structure, and that is how we look at it. So yes, the fee will be reduced, but it's how we address it. But we can't address it alone. We have to bring our partners to the table.
Okay. All right, Councilwoman Devine, this question will start off with you. Columbia offered incentives to developers to build housing for college students, and we all have sort of seen the result of that across downtown especially. You have talked about wanting to boost affordable housing. Is it time for the city of Columbia to maybe offer incentives to developers to build more affordable housing in the city, like we did with the college housing?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and we actually 2 years ago, City Council did pass a similar incentive package, but it requires the county to come to the table. COVID happened, and then we had new county council members, so we have not been able to move that forward. And so as mayor, I will work with our partners at the county to make sure that we move forward that incentive package, but also look at other things that promote affordable housing. I currently chair our Affordable Housing Task Force, and our task force has come up with all kinds of solutions to help promote affordable housing. housing. So whether that is an affordable housing tax fund, whether that is looking at an affordable housing bond like Charlotte and Atlanta have done, whether that is just addressing the fees of building in the city to make sure we're reducing the overhead that affordable housing developers would have. Those are all solutions to make sure that we're incentivizing affordable housing, and we will move forward with that under my tenure as mayor.
Councilman Rickenmann, you have also talked about boosting affordable housing in Columbia. What is the best path to do that? Is it an incentive? Is it something else? How do we get the developers to do that?
It's a combination of stuff, Andy. First of all, you still got to address the tax issue. We have 46,000 homes in this city, and 26,000 of them are rented, and they're paying 3.5 months of their rent to pay the taxes. We've got to address taxes. We have to look at ways that we can invest with partnerships and leverage outside institutional lending to help grow that. One of the things that we need to look at as well is as we give incentives to other big projects, that we take some of that money and put it in a trust fund so that we can leverage that to put into other projects, but also require big projects to have components of affordable housing, workforce housing, or build off-site housing to fit those needs. The city's had 28 lots, residential lots, for almost 10 years. Here's an opportunity for us to jumpstart it with a partnership.
In our last half hour, Councilman Rickenmann, you talked about wanting to talk about crime, so let's talk about that for just a moment. Earlier this week, SLED releasing some disturbing numbers showing that murders in South Carolina and in this area are up. Violent crimes are up. Arsons are up. If you're mayor of the city of Columbia, how do you make those numbers come down?
JR, I think we have to invest in Columbia. We have to invest within the city, and that means investing in public safety. That means backing our officers, giving them the training, the technology to combat it. But we also got to engage the community. It can't be done by ourselves. We have to have partnerships, and maybe it's crisis teams that we work with where we have pastors and we have social workers and we have neighborhood leaders that help us prevent these in the beginning. But when you look at the numbers, we can't ignore it. We've got to go and attack it. There are 80 shootings this year alone, resulting in injuries. We've had over 367 over the last 5 years. This problem is growing, and it can't be just law enforcement, and it can't just be our neighborhoods and our communities involved. We got to get the schools involved. We've got to create training. Our kids in Richland 1, less than 30% of the kids are career ready. We've got to do a better job of addressing that so that we can work together to create jobs. Jobs take away bullets.
Councilwoman Devine, same question to you. As mayor, how do you make those crime numbers come down in the capital city?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think number one, as mayor, we need a leader who's going to bring forward solutions on how that we address crime within our community. We have a public safety committee at the City of Columbia that hasn't met in the last 2 years. That committee is chaired by Councilman Rickenmann. That committee could actually bring forth solutions like I have as an individual council member. We do have a crisis intervention team that I propose, bringing in a social worker that will work hand in hand with our Columbia Police Department. And since we've had her on board, we have been able to transition several unhoused citizens into permanent housing, because what they're doing is not a crime. It's not a crime to be poor and not have a house. We also have to look at innovative solutions to recruiting and retaining our officers. And yes, that's take-home cars and more pay, but it's also diversifying our police department to make sure that we are recruiting more officers of color. And then it's also working in partnership with our community, making sure we understand the needs that lead to crime and poverty, and then how do we address those in a way that brings everybody up.
Councilman Rickenmann, quickly a response here. She says you are on a committee that's supposed to do something about it. Haven't met in a year. Is that true?
Public safety is a council whole decision. Every report that we've gotten from our police chief or our fire chief has been given to the whole council. That's the job. We refer things to the public safety committee when necessary. Council takes public safety seriously, and so everybody is involved in that. That is a council of a whole, not an individual committees.
And Ms. Devine, do you have a response to that?
We have a public safety committee, and Mr. Rickenmann is the chairperson. Anybody can refer things to the public safety committee, including the chair. I chair a committee, and we meet on a monthly basis now. We used to meet on a quarterly basis. I think it's really important. Again, yes, the mayor does the leader, and as your next mayor, I'll make sure that I'm bringing forward solutions, but we also have council members who need to bring forward solutions, and that's why you chair committees. And if you can't lead, then you shouldn't chair that committee.
Councilwoman Devine, where do you stand on gun ownership here in the capital city? Are the residents in the capital city allowed to have guns in their home?
Absolutely. I support the Second Amendment right, and so we do have to have guns in homes if the homeowner decides. But we also need to have reasonable gun sense laws. We need to look at making sure that we either register guns or we require gun owners to report when our guns are stolen. When you look at the crimes that are happening within our community, a lot of them are happening when guns are stolen, and we've got to address that. And so these are some common sense solutions I brought forward, and that's why I've received the Moms Demand Action Gun Sense Candidate designation, because I am bringing forward solutions. But I'm not for taking guns from lawful gun owners, but I am for getting illegal guns off the streets of Columbia and making sure that as gun owners may have their guns stolen, whether their car is unlocked or someone breaks in, that we're able to have the information so that those guns can be returned to that gun owner.
Councilman Rickenmann, your stance on gun ownership in Columbia?
I support the Second Amendment, and I support responsibility of gun owners.
All right, we're going to move on now. Time for another viewer question. This is from Jonathan. Take a listen.
My question is, what do you plan to do to preserve and strengthen the historically black communities bordering 5 Points as they face the threat of gentrification and displacement?
And Councilman Rickenmann, we'll begin with your answer.
Working with the neighborhood associations at 5 Points at looking at a way to revitalize the whole village, which also includes the neighborhood beside it. I've had lengthy conversations with several neighbors and the chairperson from that committee to figure out how do we keep a balance in the neighborhood. We're losing people. As you look, we've lost 4,000 families out of Richland 1. We're losing families downtown from taxes, or not being able to use our home funds to keep people in their homes. So we have a designation in Lower Shandon and also in part of historic Waverly. We need to extend that and help keep these homes and these families in that neighborhood. They are part of our fabric. And by doing that is making it a priority. As we grow 5 Points, we know that we need to protect those border neighborhoods around so that they can be part of the growth and benefit from that.
All right, Councilwoman Devine, your response.
It's about intentionality, and as I've talked about throughout the entire campaign, I'm for promoting inclusive and equitable growth within our city. You can't have equitable growth if you don't recognize what is gentrification and put in meaningful things to prevent gentrification. You know, I grew up going and visiting Martin Luther King Park all the time, and I have lots of friends and relatives who live in the MLK neighborhood and in Lower Waverly. And so I do know that those neighborhoods have continued to feel pushed out by houses that are bought up by people and students are moving in. But we have to have places for students to live as well. And so we need to have a leader who is intentional about putting programs in place, whether it is programs that will help preserve the housing stock in neighborhoods so that people don't lose it for taxes or for code issues. We have to make sure that we're balancing the needs of a neighborhood along with the growth of 5 Points, and that comes with being intentional and also thinking outside the box and making sure that every person's voice is valued and listened to.
All right, we have another viewer question tonight. This is from Becky here in Columbia.
Now, Columbia has elected 36 mayors. One of them has been black, none of them has been female. I wonder how you account for this imbalance and how you think that might have affected the development of the city.
And answering first will be Councilwoman Devine.
Great question, Miss Becky, and I thank you. So as someone who is an African American female, I have a lived experience as a black woman. But I'm not just a black woman. I am a wife and a mom, a small business owner here in this city. I'm a daughter. and I'm a Columbia native who was raised in this community. And so I've seen the development of Columbia over various mayors. And I've had the opportunity to work with two great mayors, Mayor Bob and Mayor Benjamin. What I bring to the table is a little different. I lead differently, and as a female, I think that we bring our lived experiences to the table. And so I think what accounts for that imbalance is that we are a growing city, and so we have not had an opportunity to really grow like we should and appreciate the rich diversity of our city. But I'm proud to stand here before you as one of two people going into the runoff that is a Black woman that has a lot of lived experience that will be beneficial to the city of Columbia as your next mayor. And so I think that we are getting there, like lots of other cities, southern cities, that are recognizing that we need to have diversity in those lived experiences in government and in the private sector. And I hope that next Tuesday you will help me shatter one more glass ceiling and elect our first female mayor in the city of Columbia.
And your response, Councilman Rickenmann?
I live in a house full of women. I don't have a choice in a lot of saying, but look, there are so many opportunities here, and it continues to be. I think that there's not an imbalance. It is all about personalities and the people, and we elect the people who do the best job. It shouldn't be about race, gender, or anything else. It should be strictly about who's the best person for the job. I hope my daughters one day can be the top CEO, and I think the ceiling should be open for everybody. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't make a decision just based on race or gender. It needs to be based on who's most qualified.
All right. Councilman Rickenmann, we're going to start off with you on this question. There are a lot of people in this city who think the city is stagnant. In the past decade, Charleston passed Columbia as the state's largest city. Population growth in Columbia grew at about half the rate it did statewide, according to the census going from 2010 to 2020. And income in Richland County grew at the second slowest pace in the entire state. So with that said, and again, you've been on council twice, and same with Councilwoman Devine. What is it that happened? Why did this happen? And what would you do as mayor to boost the population, to get us obviously something closer to Charleston, Greenville, and to boost the income in this city?
I think it all goes down to the fact that we missed opportunities to sell Columbia. We haven't taken the opportunity to go out there and show people what we have. But before we do that, we need to make sure that our streets are fixed and our projects are finished, and we have a real sense of pride. We have an incredible quality of life here. We have incredible talent, but we haven't harvested that talent. We haven't grown businesses here. Our soil conditions aren't right to do that. That attracts people. When people come here, they ask, why are the roads so wide? Why do you have 4 lanes on Marion? Why isn't the riverfront connected to the rest of the city? Why does Findlay Park look the way it is? Why haven't y'all addressed these issues, these high taxes? This is what attracts people. If you look at what's going on in Greenville and thing, the community has come together. They're one. Greenville's business community, its neighborhoods, and its leaders put a vision together, a strategic plan, and they went after it and they followed it through. It started off with Max Heller and it's gone through with Knox White, and the business community has really embraced it, which has strengthened the neighborhoods. It's attracted businesses and they recruit. Our recruiting, we don't go out and sell Columbia. To compete today, other capital cities, Raleigh, Austin, if you go to Tampa, you go to Nashville, you go to Lexington, Kentucky, all these cities are in double-digit growth because they are out there every day attracting people and showing them what they have, bringing them here, and also allowing those businesses internally to grow and benefit with each thing. That's our plan.
Councilwoman Devine, same question. And again, want to get a little bit also not just the how we're going to fix this, but the how did we get here, and also listening to Councilman Rickmann's answer. It seems to be the Greenville formula. Is that the formula that would work? So I know there's a few questions within that question, but you know, please address that because again, people feel
address
the
it in a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try this. I think how we got here, there's multiple factors that got here. One of the things when you look at our population growth and people moving outside of the city is that we have to address our affordable housing issue. This is an issue that I've raised over the last few years, and now everybody is jumping on the bandwagon and saying affordable housing is important. But over the last 10, 12 years, that's been something that I've talked about, but not just talked about, but actually worked towards, whether it's home ownership opportunities or supporting private developers who are doing affordable housing. So we have to have places for people to live here in the city of Columbia, and that's not what we have. So we have to focus on that. We also have to focus on progressive, inclusive, equitable growth. And so when we look at the city and how it's growing, we know that we have challenges on our growth, and we have to be able to address those challenges in an equitable way. And that is investing in our communities, investing in our neighborhoods, making sure that we're promoting job growth opportunities, make sure that we have workforce development so that people can actually learn a skill and stay here for a job and a career. So that's how we got here, and that's also how we're going to fix it. But we need a mayor who is intentional on fixing it.
I want to move on now to the pandemic. It has caused several big events here in Columbia to either be canceled or postponed over the last year and a half. Councilman Rickenmann, will you continue the annual famously hot New Year celebration if you are elected mayor? Now, last year it was a virtual online celebration. This year we're not having anything at all. So if you win office next week, will this celebration continue? And
I hope it does. I think it's been a great thing, and it's attracted a lot of people here, and a lot of people really enjoy it. I think we need more events like this to really get people excited and get people together. We spend so much time living our little pockets and bubbles, and this is a great way to bring people together to celebrate and really embrace what Columbia is all about.
And Councilwoman Devine.
Yes, I love Famously Hot New Year. I actually remember I was with Mayor Benjamin when he came up with the idea for it. We were actually, USC was in a bowl game in Atlanta, and after the game, Atlanta had a peach drop, and he said this would be great for downtown Columbia. And so it's great to see the idea come to fruition. As the next mayor, I think that we have to be able to build events like Famously Hot New Year, but others as well that actually build that inclusive city that we talk about, that bring people of all diverse walks of life into our city, enjoying our city, loving it, and appreciating our diversity.
All right. Councilwoman Devine, I've got a very simple question, but hopefully it'll be a complex answer. What does equity look like to you in the city of Columbia? What's that vision? What does it look like?
Thank you for asking that question, Andy. Equity looks like making sure that we're investing and giving people what they need, not just what's equal. There is a graphic that I love and I talk about all the time, and it shows people on different heights and different physical disabilities trying to look over a fence. And they all have a box that's equal, but they still can't have the same view site because they have different things that they're bringing to the table. But then when you actually change the different sizes of the boxes to meet people where they are, they then have the same view. Then there's a next one where you actually take the fence away so that it removes the barrier. What I see as equity is removing those barriers to success, moving those barriers for people to thrive. The City of Columbia, under my leadership, has already moved forward in doing an equity survey, and I thank all of my colleagues who agreed to actually have the equity survey. And so with that data, we can actually do a strategic plan to help us figure out how do we attain and reach equity in the City of Columbia so that every person is thriving and that they feel part of the City of Columbia in a way that helps them succeed no matter where they are, no matter where they live, no matter what things they're coming to the table with, but we're removing those barriers so that they can be successful.
Councilman Rickenmann, the same question. What does equity look like to you in the City of Columbia, and how do we accomplish it?
That everybody has an opportunity, no matter where you are. That every street, every neighborhood has sidewalks, it has clean water, it has streets in good repair, it has parks, it has everything that people need in their life, and it doesn't matter what neighborhood you are, it's equal. We've had an opportunity in Columbia to address these issues for years. I mean, we've had a majority of African American leadership on council for a decade, and we're still talking about these issues. So now we got an opportunity to take a different direction, a different chance, and really move forward and address these issues in neighborhoods like 29203 and 204 who have been left out, where we have opportunities where we could go leverage money like choice neighborhood grants and bring institutional lenders where we could suddenly have $150 million worth of leveraging power to just revitalize a neighborhood, create sense of pride, put small neighborhood grocery stores, build small businesses, and build up. That's what I see as equity.
Real quick follow-up, would doing that work in the 29203, 29204 zip codes be one of your first priorities as mayor for each of you, real quick?
It would be totally. I think that as spending a lot of time on the campaign trail, and that's the disadvantage of being district council member, you don't travel as much as you did when you were at large, but getting out and seeing the people and what they want, and what they're talking about, and the opportunities that we've had. We've made so much investment downtown. Now we got an opportunity to grow it and build up these historic neighborhoods and bring people back in the city, because those areas have lost population, 9% to be exact.
Councilwoman Devine, real quick.
Absolutely. But what I would say is that, we understand that systemic racism gives us things now that happened 10 years ago. I think it's really disingenuous to say that you have a majority African American council for 10 years and everything should be fine for the black community. Equity is not just about race. It's about giving people what they need to thrive and succeed. So it is about race, it's about socioeconomic status. And again, we need a mayor who understands what equity is, not just the word, and it will play to semantics.
We have about 30 seconds before we get to closing statements. Real quick, and you guys can answer with a simple 1 or 2 word answer here. Lightning round questions, as we call it. We'll start with Councilwoman Devine. Who is your inspiration?
My mom.
Mr. Rickenmann?
It would be my mother.
And if you're elected mayor, Councilman Rickenmann, what is your greatest fear taking over that job?
My greatest fear, you said?
Right.
Not sleeping.
And Councilwoman Devine?
That everything can't be done in 4 years.
All right. I want to thank both of our candidates, and I want to thank our viewers for their questions. Andy Shane, I want to thank you for your questions as well. Post and Courier here in Columbia, thank you so much. It is time now for our closing statements, and candidates will have 1 minute for closing statements. We're going to start with Councilman Daniel Rickenmann.
Thank you for Columbia for bringing me this far. We have a great opportunity before us. We got an opportunity to change direction. We got an opportunity to work together, to sit at the table and become one Columbia again like we were 10 years ago. Making a difference, making sure that we're dealing with all the issues that we've talked about this evening and we've been talking about on the campaign. Making sure that everybody in this city has an opportunity to grow no matter how old you are. And an opportunity to advance and grow and be part of this community. Tackling the issues that are before us, high crime, taxes, poor roads, all the things that affect us on a day-to-day life. We have an opportunity to do this together. I'm humbly asking you for your vote, and I hope you'll join me on November 16th in voting for Daniel Rickenmann.
All right, closing statement from Councilwoman Tameika Issac Devine.
Thank you, Columbia, for listening tonight. Thank you for coming to the polls on November 2nd. Thank you to Councilman Rickenmann and WLTX for giving us this opportunity. I'm Tameika Issac Devine, and it's very simple. I'm running for mayor to be a champion for all communities and making sure that we're promoting inclusive and equitable growth within this city. A lot of folks will tell you what they will do, but they've had an opportunity to do it and they haven't got it done. As your council person, I have brought innovative solutions to the table, whether it's our homeless court, whether it's the affordable housing, whether it's partnerships with Richland 1 and Richland 2 to build our financial literacy and literacy within our schools. Whether it is coming to neighborhood communities, your neighborhood meetings, and listening to your problems together and coming up with real solutions. We need a mayor who's not going to just talk, but who has the ability to act and get things done. And that's me, Tameika Issac Devine, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 16th to be your next mayor.
And that is going to conclude the closing statements and tonight's debate. Again, candidates, thank you so very much for your time. A reminder to our viewers that runoff takes place next Tuesday. Polls will be open from 7 that morning until 7 that night. Be sure to cast your ballot. Then you can see those results right here on News 19. As always, we have much more on the mayor's race right now for you on our website. Simply go to WLTX.com. Have a good night, and we'll see you again tonight at 11.